Being successful is a journey and takes a ton of energy. It takes a ton of passion and a ton of perseverance to figure out how exactly you're going to get through the tough situations you need to get through. This week in the Practicing Leader podcast, we'll be talking about grit and how you can use grit in order to be able to try to be successful in your career. My name is Parul Bhargava, and let's discuss. Angela Duckworth wrote a book called Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. It covers the topic of grit and talks about the combination of passion and perseverance and how it actually helps people meet long-term goals. But before this book was written, every one of us needed to figure out how are we going to navigate and how are we going to work through difficult situations. We've talked about this in previous podcasts, but this time we'll be talking specifically about how do you present yourself in the best possible way so that way you too can exhibit the grit necessary to help you meet your long-term goals. Throughout my career, I've had plenty of opportunities where I've needed to exhibit grit and quite honestly just didn't cope well or deal well with really, really tough situations, and over time have learned to try to tackle tough scenarios and tackle tough problems. And over time, have just gotten better and better and better at it. It's taken a lot of practice, taken a lot of energy, and love to be able to hear your experiences or how you've been able to overcome tough setbacks or tough situations in your life as well or in your career. Please go ahead and visit thepracticingleader.com/watch to be able to drop a comment down below in the video, and love to hear your stories just as well. Any books that I mentioned during this next podcast, I'll make sure I put links in the description of the YouTube video. If you want to go ahead and find that, you can go to thepracticingleader.com/watch, and it'll point you directly to the YouTube video for this one. And you can go ahead and then find the links to the books in the description. That way, if you're interested in reading those books yourself, you can go ahead and find them there. One of the key attributes that I ascribe to my success in my role has to do with being perseverant, or is that even a word? I'm not sure, but perseverance. And to figure out how do you endure challenges, setbacks, and ways to address things that happen negatively towards you, whether it be via behaviors or an outcome or something else that didn't go well. Your ability to endure all of that, your ability to deal with the setbacks and deal with the failures, and still, after it's all said and done, still be committed to delivering a good result is what's important. Throughout my career, I've run into setbacks, whether a project didn't go well, or maybe a relationship isn't going the way I wanted it to, where I'm working with somebody and something doesn't quite click the way it's supposed to. Figuring out how do you continue to apply perseverance to that scenario and saying, okay, well, how am I going to be better next time, or how am I going to improve for next time, is important. Trying to figure out how you're going to do that day in and day out, in spite of either getting results or not getting results. Being able to make sure that you're committed to getting the right outcome overall is crucial. Whatever job that you're in, you always have to make sure that you've got a long-term focus towards it, as well as passion for it. You don't have to love what it is that you're doing, but you have to love the manner in which you do it. You have to be able to bring your best self each and every time. Folks that exhibit these characteristics show a deep sense of passion, a deep sense of purpose towards meeting a set of goals. And everybody has those jobs that it's either chocolate cake or it's broccoli. There are those portions of your job that you may or may not like. But irrespective of what those portions are, you need to continue to do your best work the best way you can each and every day. Having a clear sense of direction and being able to maintain that long-term focus on those objectives and saying, hey, out there in the long term, I'm going to try to achieve X, Y, and Z, P, D, and Q. I'm going to try to get these results. This is where you can keep that focus on those things and be able to show the passion for getting great results in the long term. Being able to exhibit those things and do those consistently is going to help you be able to exhibit a characteristic of grit. Your motivation for wanting to do a great job needs to be intrinsically motivated. It needs to be something based upon something internally in yourself that says, This is how I'm going to show up and do the best job I can, and being able to do it day in and day out. If you're looking for somebody else to give you the affirmation or the confirmation that you're doing a good job, you likely will be disappointed. You likely will find out that managers and or leaders sometimes forget to be able to tell you that you did a good job. But instead, you should focus on saying, okay, how do I know I'm doing the best job I can? How do I go get the feedback, go get the information that I need to be able to know day in and day out I'm continuing to do a better job than I did the day previous? You should all have that be driven from yourself internally versus expecting it to come from anywhere else. The number of times I've had to figure out how to bounce back from failures, from setbacks, from just negative interactions, I can't count. There's been too many. I often joke around and say, it's not that I know a lot of things, is that I've failed in so many different ways that I now understand which ways not to go about and do things. And the result is, because I've gone and done all those things, I now know this pathway holds the least amount of risk. Being able to exhibit resilience consistently and be able to bounce back from these things and say, okay, well, that didn't work. Okay, well, that didn't work. Okay, well, then that didn't work. Going in over and over again, trying to figure out what pathway is going to yield the most positive result possible. And just continuing to do that and maintain optimism and maintain a determination to continue to want the results. Resilience is that thing that helps set you apart. People that can persevere over the long term, have resilience, have passion and focus, also need to be able to exhibit delayed gratification as well as self discipline. You will not get results tomorrow. You will not get results in the next day. You will not have someone else to monitor how are you doing things. You need to be in a place where you are able to deliver on those results in the long term and also be able to wait for that success to actually appear because it might be over the long term. If you're willing to put in consistent effort and you're willing to resist short term temptations or short term benefits in order to be able to achieve a long term result, you have a better chance of being able to achieve these long term goals. It's very easy to be distracted by short term goals or be distracted by short term gains. It's easy. It takes no effort to do that. You really need to be resistant to the immediate rewards. It's very easy to be tempted by those things. It's very easy to be like, hey, I was able to get this one result and look how good it was on its own. But is that going to detract from the long term goal or from the long term plan that you may have put in place? If you don't keep all of the things in mind, you likely will end up in a situation where you'll keep on choosing short term gains at the expense of the long term benefit. The next one here is a growth mindset. You need to be willing to believe that both abilities and intelligence and wisdom can be developed through effort and through practice. That means that you're in a constant state of learning, in a constant state of wanting to be able to grow yourself consistently. That means looking at yourself, looking at your behavior, looking at how you develop things and how you deliver things, and finding ways to be better than you were the day before. If you don't believe that effort and practice can make you a better person, then you're fundamentally saying that you are needing to be static or fixed. That this is the most you could do from now until in the future. This is it. And by watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, you are saying to yourself that you too can learn, you too can be better. The thing you need to remember is make sure that you keep that front and center of your mind as you approach problems, as you approach different scenarios, to make sure that you understand, what can I learn from this scenario? What can I learn from this situation? Because you know what? You're going to be challenged day in and day out. I know I am. I know that I'm asked to stretch and grow every single day. And every single day, I bring in my best effort to be that better person every single day. Now, the question is for you, are you willing to do the exact same thing? Next one. None of it is easy. It's all hard work. It all takes effort. It all takes a dedication, day in and day out to wanting to be better, to wanting to overcome objections, overcome setbacks, failures, whatever you want to call them. You are going to have to put in the work every single day. Every single day, someone will challenge you in a new and exciting way, and they will try to push your buttons, or at least you will try not to get them pushed. And every single day, you'll need to show up as your best self. You need to look at each of those scenarios or each of those problems that you're running into and look at them and say, I got that. I can do it. And jump into it and show up as your best self each and every day. Be generous with your time, be generous with who you are. Help others be able to grow and help yourself grow in that time as well. Taking the time to invest the hard work, because it is hard work, is going to reflect well on you. Showing up every single day and doing your best and exhibiting your best is going to help you be a better person in the long term. The last thing that folks that exhibit grit do is have very clear goal setting and planning. If you're going to have long-term goals, you're going to figure out how you're going to have long-term focus. You're going to figure out how to do all those things. All those require plans. And you need to make sure you create clear plans about not just what is it that you're going to do, but how is it that you're going to do them. If it helps you, you should also break that down into smaller steps or manageable chunks. That way you can figure out how are you going to get to the very next thing you need to do, or what's my next action. A good book that actually talks about that topic specifically is called Getting Things Done by David Allen. And you should go check out that book because it has a way to break down work or break down how do you approach information that you're receiving and be able to figure out how are you going to get the next thing finished. But back to grit, how do you stay focused and organized and make sure that you make progress towards your long-term objective, and how are you meeting those goals? This is going to be critical for you to be able to exhibit grit, because how else are you going to meet those long-term goals and show the perseverance to be able to meet those long-term goals? We should all aspire to be considered someone that is considered gritty. We should aspire to be able to show perseverance, to be able to show passion and long-term focus, be able to help deliver on great results, and to be in a perpetual state of learning. We should all aspire to be that. Learning to get past challenges and setbacks is always difficult, but being able to make sure that you keep the long-term focus very clearly in focus is what's going to help you do that. Sometimes it requires you to put aside something that you don't necessarily find as important as your long-term goal. Sometimes you need to figure out, how do you compromise? You're going to have to find different models in which to be able to be more gritty in order to be able to meet your long-term goals. Sometimes it takes patience, sometimes it takes work, sometimes it takes planning. It could be any of the above. But when you put all of these things together, you too can be gritty. You too can be able to help solve these big problems that might be in front of you. You are capable of anything. You can do anything. It's a matter of figuring out, what do I need to do? What do I need to learn? How do I learn it? And how do I jump in and get started in doing it? Thank you for listening to the Practicing Leader podcast. I'm your host, Prul Bhargava, and I'll talk to you next week.